Welcome to Talking Buffalo, featuring conversations with guests from around the world of sports, media, pop culture, and all things Buffalo, with your host, Patrick Moran.
All right, what is going on, everybody? How you doing? Welcome to a Friday episode of Talking Buffalo, your weekday daily driver for Buffalo sports talk and more. My name is Patrick Moran. Big thank you to everyone out there, as always, for watching, for listening, for following, for subscribing. You guys are the best. I appreciate you very, very, very much. Today's episode is brought to you by Sunny Reds, 1841 Abbott Road. And you know what? I'm sick of calling them underrated wings because they ain't that underrated anymore because people are really starting to know about them. And if you've been there, you definitely know one of the best premier places in all of Western New York to go to for wings, for pizza, burgers, fish fry, draft beers, vibes, atmosphere, the whole shebang. And it's like 5 minutes from Highmark Stadium. They're a big supporter of this show. So make sure you guys go out if you're around and about the Lackawanna, Orchard Park area and support Sunny Reds as well. All right, so this is our weekly Bills versus opponent preview. This week, of course, Los Angeles Rams. So a Bills-Rams preview, bowl predictions as always, game score prediction as always. This time, in fact, just a few minutes from now, I'm going to a little bit of a twist. Instead of doing this solo, I'm going to bring in a blogger who covers the Rams for the Turf Show Times by the name of Blaine. Grisak. He's got a lot of insight on the Rams, so we'll preview the game. I'll spend some time talking about the Rams with him. Again, Bills keys to victory, Rams keys to victory, bowl predictions for both sides, and then we both make a final score prediction. Fun conversation I had with him, so I'll play that for you guys in just a second. As for the Bills, the Rams too, this is just, tell you what, man, this is a game. I don't know if it's a marquee game around the league, but I think this is a very interesting and fun matchup for fans. Obviously, Bills and Rams fans, but even if you're not a Bills fan or a Rams fan, you're just, and we talked about this a little bit with Blaine, even if you're just a casual fan and you're looking for a fun, interesting game to watch on Sunday, you're flipping around the Sunday ticket. Won't be that many options because it's the later games, so it's not like you're competing against 8 other games. It's just going to be a game that the average casual football fan should probably enjoy. 2 really good quarterbacks. One of them, of course, an MVP frontrunner in Josh Allen. Then on the other side, a guy who has won the Super Bowl, a future Hall of Fame quarterback, very likely anyway, in Matthew Stafford. Going to be a very fun game to watch, and I'm interested in it, of course. Don't look past, I talk about this during the interview too with Blaine. Don't look past the Rams to get to the Detroit Lions. Of course, next week is the week that Bills fans, Lions fans, people everywhere are waiting for a potential Super Bowl preview, a potential NFL game of the year right there, Bills Lions. But the Bills got some business to handle first this Sunday in Los Angeles, and don't expect that to be, an easy game. Don't expect the Rams to just roll over. They're 6-6. They are very much in the mix for whether it's the NFC West or to make a wild card. So a lot of stake for both teams here in this game. Of course, the Bills are trying to hunt down that number 1 seed. Quickly here, because we don't talk about this during the interview, but on the Bills injury front, on Thursday, they practiced, and it was the exact same as Wednesday. Dalton Kincaid, limited, was promising news, was in a regular white jersey with the rest of the offense, not a red non-contact jersey. So that feels promising. I don't have any inside information, any sources on this, but I kind of feel like Dalton Kincaid is definitely trending in the right way. Of course, last week he didn't play against Frisco. He didn't practice at all during the week either, but he has been a limited participant on Wednesday and Thursday. Again, a regular team jersey, offensive jersey to practice in on Thursday. To me, that looks promising. So it would not surprise me whatsoever if Dalton Kincaid is back for the Buffalo Bills this Sunday in LA. Taylor Rapp limited for a second consecutive day. Quentin Morris also limited. Curtis Samuel, foot injury, he popped up on the report on Wednesday. He was also limited. And then last but not least, Keon Coleman, still in a red non-contact jersey, but he's been practicing on a limited basis. I saw on social media his, in fact, that might have been Wednesday, actually, his agent, who has got a pretty good presence among Buffalo fans on social media, said don't pepper him with questions. He doesn't know. I kind of feel like that's the case with Keon Coleman. How's his wrist is responding? We'll see if he plays. It could go either way with him. Of course, we'd like to see him back out there. Two guys on AR right now, who the practice window's been open. Dwayne Carter, Tylen Grable. They've been full participants this week. I'm interested to see how that plays out. I have an expectation that both of them will come off IR and go on to the active roster by 4 p.m. on Saturday. In fact, I would almost consider that a lock for Dwayne Carter, who is certainly, before he got hurt, becoming a significant part of the defensive line, defensive tackle rotation. As for Grable, promising early on. In fact, he was active actually as the Bills' third tackle early in the year because of his ability to play the right side over Ryan Vandermark. But then Ryan Vandermark was forced into action at right tackle when Spencer Brown went down against the Chiefs, and he played very well. But anyway, I would expect Grable to be active. My guess, and this is just a guess at this point, kind of a educated guess. So it kind of feels like Jordan Phillips, maybe Will Clapp. Those are the two veterans that the Bills would cut, have to expose to waivers, and then hopefully get both of them back on their practice squad. Seems like the logical choice. Quentin Jefferson could be another candidate, but he plays a lot more inside-outside. Kind of reminds me of Duane Smoot, so I would probably think that it would take Smoot coming back to bump Jefferson off this active roster. So I'd say Phillips and Clapp are probably the two most likely candidates. Jalen Virgil could be a possibility as well. I mean, he is the sixth receiver right now for the Bills. They've kept six, but he would probably start being in. Well, I don't even know if he would be inactive. So forget I said that. But anyway, he could be a possibility. He is a gunner on special teams, although when you watch that game film, he struggled pretty bad against Frisco on Sunday night. Both those long Deebo Samuel returns largely were due to Jalen Virgil getting caught inside. But anyway, like I said, Phillips, Clapp, probably. Virgil, potentially. We'll see how that plays out. We'll know more for sure by Saturday. And the last thing, too, before we get going and I bring in Blaine for this interview, we talk about it more in depth on the show, but this is going to be a big test to me, and I'm just offering my own personal opinion here. For me, I look at the Bills' offensive line, which I do list. There's a little bit of a spoiler alert. It's one of my keys of the game, the Bills' offensive line, how they play. And I also think this is going to be a big test for the Bills' secondary. This is the Rams team. Again, they're 6-6, and it feels average, and their stats feel average. But this is a dangerous team with a lot of talent. In terms of the Bills' offensive line, the Rams, if there's one thing this team does consistently well on this football team is get pressure on the quarterback. And these are with rookies and second-year guys on the defensive line, which we'll talk about here in more than a minute. So I think that's a big test for the offensive line. Then the secondary. Look, the Bills' corner's been great this year. Rasul Douglas, solid. Christian Benford has played, to me, in my opinion, at an all-pro level. Forget about Pro Bowl. And DeMar Hamlin, a lightning rod for debate amongst content creators, media, and fans. But I think we can all agree at worst, he's been fine. But, is fine going to be good enough over these next 2 weeks with these Rams receivers like Kupp and Nucua and Robinson? Good receivers. Not to mention that what's coming in Detroit the following week. So Rapp, assuming he could play, Hamlin, that secondary, it's going to be a big, big test for them. But anyway, enough from my big mouth. I want to get to my interview today. Like I said, he works for the Turf Tough Times. I'll get that right. Talented Rams blogger. My guy coming up right now, Blaine Grisak. All right, here we go. Bills Rams preview. And like I said, I promise you guys, I wanted to get a perspective outside of just my own big, well, I don't say big, but certainly an interesting and a fun matchup coming for sure this weekend. And I am joined right now by a guy who covers the Rams for SB Nation Turf Show Times, Blaine Grisak. What's going on, buddy? How you doing? Thank you for coming on and helping me offer a Rams perspective to most Bills fans who are watching this. How you doing, buddy?
Good. Thanks for having me on, Patrick. Really looking forward to this one. Obviously, I think, like you said, maybe not as big of a matchup as people maybe expected early in the season. It's still a big matchup nonetheless. Rams still they may not be one of the top contenders in the NFC, but certainly have the ability to knock off some of the better teams in the NFL for sure. And looking forward to diving into this one.
Well, let me kind of walk that back a little bit. When I said this this is potentially a really great matchup. I think if you're not a Bills fan, Blaine, okay, you're not a Bills fan or you're not a Rams fan, you're just a football fan, okay, and it's Sunday and this game is on in your market, or you got the Sunday ticket and you don't want to mess around with Red Zone. It annoys you that it switches so much. You really want to lock into a game that's going to be a fun watch. This feels like it's going to be that game.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean the Bills offense has been just absolutely on fire recently, which is just kind of incredible, just considering, Kincaid's been out, Keon Coleman has been out, but Josh Allen and Moran Cooper have kind of gotten a fun connection down, and Matthew Stafford with Puca Nucua and Cooper Kupp have that ability to match that stride for stride. So it could be a fun one for sure. Yeah,
and it's going to be an important game. It's important for both teams. From the Rams' perspective, 6-6. You guys are, you're fighting for a playoff spot right now. You're trying to get to the postseason, and it's 6-6. The Rams are very, very much in the mix. In terms of the Bills, they've already won the AFC East. They're 10-2. They got their eyes set squarely on the number 1 seed. So you got to keep pace with the Kansas City Chiefs. So it is still a very important game too for both teams. What I want to do is ask you some questions. I want to learn, the audience, I'm sure, will learn a little bit more about the Rams from somebody who's watching and writing about the team on a day-to-day basis as opposed to an outsider. So we'll do that. Then we're going to get into, like I said, 3 keys for the Bills, which I do every week. I want to get a couple Rams keys from you as well. We'll have a little bit of fun with some bold predictions. And then, of course, a final score at the end. Let's start here. All right, so the Rams are now 12 games they played. They're 6-6. And I got to add this, too. So I've tried my best to do my homework on them, although I didn't want to do too much homework because I want to learn some stuff from you here, Blaine. But it's like statistically, it feels like they're in the middle of the pack, too. Like they're 6-6, middle of the pack record. They're statistically, both sides of the ball, feels like they're pretty much in the middle of the pack with everything. Like at 6-6, what for the most part has went right with the Rams so far this year? And conversely, what has went wrong with the Rams this year?
Yeah, I think as far as what's gone right, I think when you were coming into the 2024 season, you're coming in without Aaron Donald for the first time since 2014, and you're expecting the defensive side of the ball to look pretty rough, especially along the defensive line, and that really hasn't been the case. In fact, I'd argue probably the defensive line has been one of the more fun units on the Rams to watch this year. I mean, you have Kobe Turner, who's in year 2 and kind of making a name for himself. Braden Fisk just got Defensive Rookie of the Month for the month of November. He's been absolutely on fire, playing really well. And then obviously you have Jared Verse, who is I think the betting favorite right now for Defensive Rookie of the Year, and Byron Young too on the other side has played really well in his second year at edge. Really come along well, and then him and Verse have really complemented each other. And the Rams have 6 wins this year, and between Verse and Young, both guys have kind of made that game winning play for them at the end of games. So yeah, I say as far as what's gone right, that defensive line, I think they lead the NFL in quarterback pressure rate. They've been, like I said, they've been one of the more fun units on this team to watch. Not strictly because of just how young they are, but I mean, when like I said, when you're coming to this year, you're coming in without Aaron Donald, and you're kind of like, who's going to be that guy that's going to kind of be kind of the superstar of the defense, and that guy's been Jared Verse. He makes a special play, just like a freaky athletic play on a weekly basis. As far as kind of what's gone wrong, it's kind of odd just coming from a Sean McVay team, but it's the offense. The offense has been just wildly inconsistent. Early on in the year, they'd have like a top 5 success rate, but they like you said, they're kind of like in the middle there in EPA and other rankings, and that's just because they weren't able to finish finish drives in the red zone, or Kyren Williams has had a few big fumbles there. late in drives. Just failing to capitalize on opportunities. I think in 8 games this year, they failed to score a single point in the first quarter. They were shut out completely last week against the Saints in the first half. So it's just an offense where they've been very streaky, very up and down, and some of that is to do with injuries, but other part of it is execution as well.
I could it sounds weird, especially if you're an outsider who doesn't follow the Bills much, and you look at the Bills and they're second in offense and scoring this year, and you could be like, what are you, nuts, Pat? But I can kind of relate to that offensive lead to start games. The Bills have, for a lot of the season, gotten off to really slow starts on the offense. It's been adjustments, and, they've come on as the game went on. And to your point, too, about Jared Verse. And I'm going to talk about the Rams defensive line a little bit more in just a few minutes here, because spoiler alert here, it's among my Bills, three Bills keys. Jared Verse was a guy that I followed pretty closely during his draft process, and actually Fisk was as well. Jared Verse was a guy. So it was like Bills are going to get a receiver. They're going to get a receiver. They're going to get the whole process. And I'm like, they could use an edge rusher too. And I remember spitballing with the guy on before the draft, well-respected guy here on the show too. And I was like, Jared Verse would be a guy worth moving up for, because the Bills picked 28th. He was not going to fall to 28th, and he didn't. But I'm like, this dude has got a lot of talent, man. He's a good pass rusher, and he's a guy that you move up for. Fisk is a guy that a lot of people were linking to the Bills potentially in the second round. Kind of wish that would have came to fruition, because this dude looks really, really good. It's weird when you think of the Rams, and I completely believe you. Obviously, you're covering the team, but to talk about this team with a defensive line that's so good, which that's not so much of a surprise because Aaron Donald's been there for so long, but with him gone, to talk about the Rams defensive line is one of the biggest strengths on this team. And then to talk about at least the consistency of the Rams offense as being a weakness this year. It's a little odd to hear from an outsider when it comes to the Rams.
Yeah, and that's not something you expect from a Sean McVay coach team, and the same thing is kind of happening in San Francisco. That offense is struggling, sure. And that's not something you expect from a Kyle Shanahan coach team. So these are two of the best offensive minds in football. But yeah, like you said, defensively, especially in relation to Jared Verse, you said, Jared Verse was never going to fall to 28 to the Bills, but I don't think the Rams really expected him to fall down to 19 either.
Right.
That the defensive talent, just with all the offensive players going early, the defensive talent fell, and Verse kind of fell into their lap, and then they make the move in the second round to trade up for Braden Fisk, and pairing those two teammates together from Florida State was one of the big reasons for doing that.
What is how are the Rams looking right now on the injury front with the Bills? I talked about this a little bit during the opening. Keon Coleman is practicing still in a red non-contact jersey, obviously because of his wrist. From a Bills perspective, the bigger news on Thursday is that Dalton Kincaid was practicing, it looks like in full, and he was in a regular jersey, not contact. And this was after a DNP all week. He didn't play last week and he didn't practice last week, but he practiced on Wednesday and Thursday in full contact, normal white jersey. So he certainly seems to be trending towards playing on Sunday. From the Rams, what do you guys got going on in terms of injuries?
For the first time this season, the Rams might be the healthiest that they've been. They really struggled with injuries in the early part of the season, but this week looks like Tyler Higbee could be coming back. He tore his ACL in the wild card loss last year to the to the Detroit Lions, so he should be making his return, and the Rams will certainly welcome it. They've kind of missed his presence there at the tight end spot, and then it'll be interesting to see how much it affects his movement, because Stafford is one of the better, I think, pocket movers when it comes to the quarterback position in the NFL. But Stafford hurt his ankle last week. It doesn't seem to be anything serious, but I think it is something worth noting, and especially, like I said, when it relates to his pocket movement, because that is something he is so good at.
Yeah. So it appears, like you said, the Rams are as healthy as they've been in a long time. Ditto for the Bills. Like I said, you're going to get Kincaid back likely. Certainly looks like Keon Coleman will be back. A couple guys who've been on IR might be back. Their practice window was open, reserve players, but still, it's good to see the Bills looking relatively healthy as well as the Rams. I want to kind of go back to the defense here for a minute. So we talk about, the pass rush for the Rams, these young, really talented guys. That defensive front looks really good. But then you look again statistically, They're only 24th right now. I'm talking about the Rams here in rush defense EPA and 24th overall, actually, in defensive EPA, which again, people can use metrics the way that they want to use them. But as a defense as a whole been a sore spot, like my opinion, not my opinion, my thought is you get past the Rams defensive line, which, you've highlighted is really good. Like, what do they got in that back seven with linebackers? The secondary has that been a little bit of a sore spot for the Rams this season?
Yeah, so I guess the way that I like to look at it, the NFL season is so long, and I like to kind of look at it in blocks, I guess.
Sure.
And especially when it comes to this Rams defense, they came into the season very young, obviously, losing Aaron Donald, a new defensive coordinator in Chris Shula. So I think it was always kind of expected that there were going to be some bumps along the way, and especially within the first couple weeks, and from weeks 4 to 11. They rank 7th in run defense success rate and 8th in run defense EPA. Their defense as a whole since week 4 ranks 10th in defensive EPA. So you look at the Eagles game, and obviously Saquon Barkley's having an MVP caliber type of season, and most defenses are struggling to stop him as is. The Rams gave up 255 yards rushing to him 2 weeks ago. So I think there's still some inconsistency, but at the same time, since the early part of the year, they've really played well, really stepped up to the plate, and you can really see their growth and their comfort level within the scheme, and just their maturity as well. Verse really struggled kind of defending the edge early on and over pursuing and missing tackles, and you can just kind of see how he's gotten better with those things as the season has gone on. Like I said earlier, last week the Rams were shut out in the first half to the Saints, and I think most times when you don't score a single point in the first half, you're looking at a pretty big deficit, and the Rams were only down 6-0, and keeping that deficit within one score ended up really being key to coming back in the second half and taking what was a very important win to get back to 500. So I think this is a defense that can be exploited, especially on that back end. You have Darius Williams, who's been kind of just a steady presence on the outside, but not the best cornerback by any means. On the other side, you have Kobe Durant, who's a little smaller. They like to play free safeties. You have Cam Curl, Quentin Lake, and Cam Kinchins, and Jalen McCullough will kind of rotate in depending on the situation. But and Cam Kinchins has made a lot of plays for them, especially on the interception front. And then at linebacker, you have Omar Spates and Christian Roseman, who, again, early on in the season, they really struggled at the linebacker spot, but as over the past 6 to 8 weeks or so, they've been playing better. I think still a group that you can kind of exploit and take advantage of, but there has been improvement for sure.
It's funny. We're talking about the Rams here, and ironically, I never thought of this until you and I started having this conversation. I've already mentioned 2 rookies for the Rams that I like a lot. Well, you just name dropped the third, because I'm a big Kitchens guy too, going back to the draft process. So the Bills drafted a safety, Cole Bishop, in the second round, and I preferred Kitchens. And look, it's really early. Kitchens is getting an opportunity to play and shine some early, whereas Cole Bishop, this is almost, for all intents and purposes, unless an injury happens or so, and he's playing some special teams, but it's kind of a redshirt year for Cole Bishop with the Buffalo Bills right now. He wasn't forced into the lineup, so I'm certainly not going to say that Kitchens has been, he's a better pro than Cole Bishop based off just this rookie year. But my point was, Kitchen was a guy that I really liked. A lot of Bills content creators and fans really liked him coming out of Miami. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you here, man, while I got you on. Trey White was a guy that for years was a Bills favorite. He was a former all-pro corner, one of the more popular Buffalo Bills in franchise history, certainly of this modern era of Buffalo Bills football anyway. But he had those 2 major injuries. The Bills made what felt at the time, at least anyway, a tough decision to cut him during the offseason. Eventually, he signed with the Rams. Clearly, that didn't work out. I did watch some Rams football because I'm a big Trey White guy, but it was really clear he just didn't have it anymore. Your thoughts on Trey White? It just something that was not going to work out with the Rams. Eventually, he got cut, and now he's with Baltimore for now.
Yeah, I mean, Trey White was one of my favorite cornerbacks a couple of years ago. He was really fun to watch. But like you said, it just didn't work. I think he gave up 4 touchdowns or something like that in the first 5 or 6 weeks. And then they, like you said, they ended up cutting him. But it was one of those moves where you can only fix so many things in one offseason, and the Rams they've been rebuilding this defense. So they draft Jared Verse, they draft Braden Fisk, they kind of patch together. They get better along the defensive line as Aaron Donald retires, but at the same time, the back end of their defense was going to suffer a little bit. So I think they tried to kind of put duct tape on it a little bit, and just kind of bring in some veterans that could hold down the fort, and that's why they brought back Darius Williams, who had been in LA previously, and then they take a big swing on Trey White, not necessarily from a financial perspective, but just kind of hoping he can get back to not necessarily his all pro level, but just kind of be a steady presence there on the outside. And it wasn't my favorite signing. I think it's hard for any player to come back from an ACL and an Achilles. One of those is difficult. Both of them is nearly impossible, even for just how good these athletes are nowadays. But yeah, just didn't end up working. Didn't end up working out, and unfortunately, injuries for Trey White played a big role in that.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Like I said, a big time fan favorite and a great guy too. Trey White is just. He's going to be one of those what could have been type guys. If the injuries don't come, he could have become a perennial all-pro corner, and who knows how his career plays out. Anyway, all right, offensive side of the ball. Kyren Williams is my guy. Notre Dame. I'm a Notre Dame fan. Loved him coming out of school. He's been a much better pro than a lot of people thought he would be. 926 yards rushing this year. Very impressive. Found the end zone 10 times. He always does that. It's what he's elite at. But I also noticed, looking at the stats, that he's fumbled 5 times this year and lost 3. So that kind of feels like a little bit of problem. I want you to talk about him, and then I also want you to talk about a couple of these low-key receivers on the Rams. Tutu Atwell and Demarcus Robinson. They're really good. At least it seems to me, secondary receiving options. Atwell's got 32 catches for 462 yards. And who's the other guy I was talking about? Robinson. He's got 28 catches for 433 yards. By the way, both those totals would be second on the Bills in receiving yards right now for the season. So, we know about Matt Stafford, but talk to me a little bit about Williams. Like I said, is the fumbling thing, has that been an issue or those kind of fumbles and meaningless points in the game? I wouldn't know because I'm not watching all the Rams games. And talk a little bit about those secondary Rams receivers as well.
Yeah, so starting with Kyren Williams, it's kind of funny, going back to the offseason, the Rams draft Blake Corum in the 3rd round, and everybody's talking about how Blake Corum is gonna carve into Kyren Williams' touches and take over at some point in the middle of the season, and that just hasn't happened. Sean McVay loves himself some Kyren Williams. He absolutely loves him, and he gives the offense exactly what they need. He's really good in pass protection, but like you said, the fumbles have been an issue against the Eagles. Opening drive, the Rams are moving the ball, and then they get right inside. It was either on the edge of the red zone or just had entered the red zone, and Kyren Williams fumbles and turns the ball over. And that just, against an Eagles team that's as good as they are, setting that tone early is important. And you turn the ball over in that spot, and it's not good. And then the week before against Miami did the same thing. Rams had just had been struggling offensively. Defense gets a big turnover. Very next play, Kyren Williams fumbles, and Miami recovers. So the fumbles are coming in big spots. They have been an issue. I believe they were an issue even going back to his days at Notre Dame. But I think last week he kind of showed again just what he can bring to the offense. He went over 100 yards for only the 2nd time this season. He's a great singles or doubles hitter, I guess, for a baseball metaphor. But he's not going to necessarily hit that home run. And I think the Rams rank 19th in explosives this year, and that's, I think, seen just with how hard they have to work to score points. But yeah, Kyren Williams has been great. He's steady. like I said, Sean McVay loves him, and he should be seen as the main guy until proven otherwise. Moving on to the wide receivers, especially Tutu Atwell and Demarcus Robinson. Demarcus Robinson and Matthew Stafford have had a connection, just kind of going back to last year when the Rams brought Robinson in. He's that guy that he's going to get open on third down. The defense kind of forgets about him because they're so focused on Puka Nucua and Cooper Kupp. And here's Demarcus Robinson along the sideline or coming across on an in-breaker wide open. So he's that guy that Matthew Stafford will look for in big spots. He's also the biggest wide receiver on the Rams, so he's somebody that Matthew Stafford kind of looks for in the red zone. I believe he has 6 touchdowns this year, which is a career high. And then Atwell, that's a controversial topic in the Rams fan base. The year they drafted him, the Rams really needed a center, and they passed on Creed Humphrey and took Tutu Atwell instead. And that's kind of just always been kind of on the forefront of fans' minds when it comes to him. But early on in the year, he really stepped up when Puka Nucua and Cooper Kupp were out. He's the fastest wide receiver on the team, so he's the guy that you have to account for deep down the field. And then I think he's really developed well as a wide receiver in his route running. It's just a matter of Sean McVay finding ways to get him the ball and making it a focal point to get him on the field. I think last week was the second time like 4 weeks he's had 20 offensive snaps. So he's like I said, the Rams are kind of lacking on the explosive play front, and he's a guy that can create them, and it's up to McVay to put him in spots to make those plays.
I want to take a real quick break, come back on the other side. We're going to go over our keys to the game. Like I said, I got 3 Bills keys. Blaine might have a couple from the Rams perspective as well. We'll have a little bit of fun with some bold predictions and a final score pick. Be right back after this quick break. All right, I am back here with Blaine Grisak, and let's do some keys to victory here. I always do 3 for the Bills. I want to get a couple from you as well. I'll tell you what, we'll kind of figure this out on the fly. If I want to go through all 3 at once and then get a general opinion from you, yeah, we'll do that. All right, so my first key, we spent a lot of time, you did, talking about the ability of a young defensive line with the Los Angeles Rams. To me, the big key for the Bills, one of the big keys anyway, is a solid performance from the Bills' offensive line. The Bills' offensive line, Josh Allen is the MVP front runner right now, and James Cook's found the end zone 11 times, and this offense, for the most part, is cooking, and a lot of that has to do with an offensive line that kind of really flies under the radar, but for the most part, they've been really good this year. So a solid performance against an offensive line versus, like I said, a good Rams young defensive line. Guys like Kobe Turner, like you talked about, and Verse and Fisk and Young. Young, by the way, is 6X, leads the team, I believe, this season, or he's right up near the top anyway. So that to me is definitely a key. That kind of sounds logical to you, Blaine, right?
Yeah, I think like I said, the strength of their Rams defense is that defensive line, and a weak spot is that back seven. And the best way to help a struggling secondary is to get pressure on the quarterback. So if you can kind of stop the Rams pass rush and give Josh Allen time, he has the ability to pick apart the Rams secondary.
Yeah. Red zone defense is my second key for the Bills. Despite, like you talked about, the Rams, and I learned a lot about them through you, the inconsistency of this offense, they do have a talented veteran quarterback who could still get it done. With Kupp and Puca Nucua, they got some really good receivers. Williams can run the football. The Bills have had some issues this year, a lot of issues at times, stopping the run. The Bills, without fail, play in a nickel-based defense, and they do not go to that 4-3. They hate to do it. They rarely ever do. They're going to give up yards. Is basically what I'm telling you, is they're going to give up yards. At the beginning of the game on Sunday night against the Niners, we kind of saw that. The Niners' first couple drives marched down the field, hold them to field goals, made a field goal on the first drive, missed one on the second drive. I think a key for the Bills, especially being on the road, which this defense is, it's been pretty good this year, but it has had the struggles it has been on the road. They were terrible in Baltimore. They were lousy, at least in the first half, against Houston before they kind of got their act together a little bit. But You got to assume that the Rams are going to move the football. The quarterback, the receivers, the running back, they got enough weapons. A key is especially on the road, holding the team to 3 instead of 7.
For sure. I mean, and games the Rams have lost this year, they've really struggled in the red zone. Going back to week 1 against the Lions, I think they were 2 for 5 in the red zone, and they lost to their Bears. I think it was the same thing. It was like 2 for 4 or 2 for 5 in the red zone. That it really wasn't good. And then I think in the Miami game they were 0 for 3. So it's just where the Rams, like I said earlier, the Rams have really struggled to close out drives, and that starts in the red zone.
Yeah, and the Bills, for the record, they're 8th right now in red zone defense this year. So they've been pretty good at it. Then the last key, and this sounds simple, but it matters. The Rams are not a team that you look past. And I know everybody around Buffalo, fans, media, content creators, is already looking forward to December 15th next week. The Bills at Detroit, possibly a Super Bowl preview, quite possibly the NFL game of the year for general fans of the league. You got to handle business first here, again, on the road against a Rams team that if you don't come to play, they will absolutely beat you. 6-6 is not great. 6-6 is not that bad either. They're a team with a lot of veterans on offense and some good young talent on defense. You cannot afford to look past the Rams. I'm sure you would agree. From a Rams perspective, Blaine, what would be a couple keys? If you're a Rams fan and you're watching or listening to this, you're checking out Blaine on my show this week, and you're hoping for a Rams victory, what would be a key or two for you?
Yeah, I think it starts with protecting Matthew Stafford. This is the second time this year that the Rams have had their, I guess, what you would consider their projected starting 5 on the offensive line. Kind of coming into the year, I think you kind of would have looked at Alaric Jackson, Jonah Jackson, Steve Avila, Kevin Dotson, and Rob Havenstein as that starting 5, and then Jonah Jackson simply hasn't worked out at left guard. So and Bo Limmer drafted in the 6th round. Like I still can't believe he fell that far, but he really has stepped in well at center. So this is the second time this season the Rams have had Alaric Jackson, Steve Avila, Bo Limmer, Kevin Dotson, and Rob Havenstein all playing together on the offensive line. So I know the Bills have a pretty good pass rush. I think going back to 2022, Von Miller in that opening game really took advantage of Joe Noteboom on the left side. Greg Rousseau is playing at a Pro Bowl level. I think he's done really well. So if you give Matthew Stafford time to throw, he is one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL and can make a secondary pace. So I do think Rams have to keep him upright and keep him healthy. And then I think I am kind of curious for some insight on your perspective here. But when I looked at the SM Bills defense stats, especially in the run game, they're 6th in run defense EPA per rush, 6th in stuff rate, but they've allowed the most yards per play in the run game. So you can maybe add on to that here in a second, but I think if the Rams can find some yards in the run game, find some success in that area. Matthew Stafford has also been one of the better quarterbacks in play action. So if you can find some success in the run game to get to the play action where Stafford ranks in the top 3 in yards, touchdowns, and EPA per dropback, you give yourself a chance on offense.
I'm glad you brought up what you did. First of all, Greg Rousseau. I'm glad you brought him up from somebody from the other team talking about him. He has been playing at a Pro Bowl level. He is a very well-refined, balanced edge rusher. He's not Hutchinson. He's not Watt. He's not going to get 16, 17, 18 sacks, but he's right up there in quarterback pressures, and he's really, really good at setting the edge, and he's very good against the run. In terms of the Bills' rush defense, it is weird. It's kind of an enigma because advanced metrics show that they're good. The eye test and just remembering games this year doesn't so much feel that way. It feels to me that teams have had success running the football against the Bills, and then for whatever reason, they get away from it. A couple turnovers, a mistake or two, they get down, they just stop running the football. It's almost like they bailed the Bills defense out a little bit this year. If I'm the Rams and I'm going with my keys just from a Buffalo perspective, knowing this team, Williams is going to get a lot of work, and I mean a lot of work. The Bills secondary this year has been really good. Rasul Douglas and especially Christian Benford are great corners. And from a Bills perspective, they're going to get their biggest test of the year over the next 2 weeks because Nucua and Kupp are great receivers. So there's going to be a big test for them. Damar Hamlin is a much talked about guy here in Buffalo. He's been fine. But again, the secondary is going to get tested a lot, I think, this Sunday, and especially against Detroit. Yeah, I don't know what it is, dude, about the Bills' rush defense. At times it looks awful, but then they make adjustments. And they're almost willing to say, you know what? You want to run the ball? Go ahead. Run the football. We'll let you go from the 30 to the 30. We're going to tighten things up. You might get a holding call. You might try to throw on first or second down and we'll get a sack. Turnover, something a couple times a game will stall your drive, and our offense is going to carry us to a victory. Good points, though, from you. Let's do our bold predictions. Again, I got 3. I do these every week. First one, and then, you know what? I usually come bolder than I'm coming at you today. These are relatively bold, but they're not that bold. I'll be honest with you. First one, I got 2 sacks between Von Miller and AJ Epinesa. We just talked about Greg Rousseau. I think the Bills are going to get 2 sacks from Von Miller and AJ Epinesa. I think if the Bills defense is going to have success, if Matt Stafford's got to throw, they got to be able to pin their ears back, hopefully, and be able to get after him. So I got that. I got Amari Cooper having his first 100-yard game for the Buffalo Bills this season. I'll point out a little fun fact for you. The Bills' offense has been really good, but the mantra in Buffalo is everybody eats. And everybody's been eating. Nobody's eating too much. The Bills have only had 2 100-yard receivers this entire season, which kind of blows your mind right now when you look at their numbers and the success that they've had on offense, which kind of leads to my last bold prediction here. Josh Allen's going to have a season high in passing yards. 323 was his season high against the Tennessee Titans. And here's another little fun fact for you, Blaine. Josh Allen is the prohibitive favorite right now to win MVP. Josh Allen has only thrown for 300 yards in a game one time this entire season. It was against Tennessee, 323. I just get a gut feeling, dude, this is going to kind of become a shootout, and it's going to be fun. And obviously, if it's going to be a shootout, that means Josh is going to be slinging the football. And, yeah, so I got him going a season high, 323. He'll beat that. What do you think? What do you got?
All right, so mine are I think Jared Verse or Braden Fisk make an impact play in this game. But both rookies are playing at a really high level. Jared Verse, it seems like whether it's a key pressure or getting or last week against Derek Carr getting the sack fumble at the end that ends the game. Those are the 2 guys that kind of seem to be showing up in the big moments. So I think one of those 2 players makes some sort of impact play in this game, whether it leads to a fumble or an interception, and then it'll be up to the Rams offense to capitalize on it. My next one, and I do like that you brought up your bold prediction on Josh Allen. Mine is going to be on Matthew Stafford, and mine is that I think Matthew Stafford outperforms MVP Josh Allen in this game. It shows why he is still one of the better. Why he still should be considered a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. Over his last 3 games, Matthew Stafford has a passer rating over 100. He's thrown 8 touchdowns to 0 interception over the last 3 weeks. I think Matthew Stafford is going to be locked in for this game, and I think he's going to make it a lot closer than maybe some people think it might be.
That is interesting. It's certainly not out of the realm of possibility. I'll say this: if I were a Rams fan and I'm looking for something that would give me the most hope or confidence, I would say this. So the Bills are 10-2, okay? And they've won in a variety of different ways. And like I've told you, it's not except for Josh Allen being the common denominator. It's always someone else that is stepping up. I think that's probably the best thing about the Bills this year, besides Josh Allen, has been every week it's someone else who's making the big play, the impactful plays to win this game. But if I'm a Ram fan and I'm clinging on to some hope here, the Bills have not played that well on the road especially against good football teams. Like, they beat the Colts on the road. I don't think the Colts are a very good team. They beat the Jets on the road. I don't think the Jets are a very good football team. They've played 2 good teams on the road. They got blown out in Baltimore in week 4, and they lost in Houston in week 5. They only lost that game by field goal, but it could have easily been a blowout. Houston kind of fumbled away opportunities to really put that game away, and they let Buffalo hang around. So I don't know how the Bills are going to perform on the road against a strong veteran quarterback. That remains to be seen. So look, Matthew Stafford having a big game would not shock me. Him even out playing Josh Allen, in part because Matt Stafford's a really good quarterback, in part because I kind of believe in the law of gravity. Like, Josh is due for one of those games. He had it in week 5. Houston, he was terrible, but that's been the only bad game he's played this year. It's like he's like overdue to have one of those 1 touchdown, 3 turnover, 2 ugly pick type games. So it certainly is not out of the realm of possibility. We'll end with this, and I'll let you go first. The visiting side. Well, actually, you're the home team here, but you're the visitor on this show. Give me a final score prediction, because I'm going to come at you in a good way or a bad way. If you're right, if you're wrong, I'm gonna be like, I'm gonna let everybody know what Blaine said here on the show on Friday. But give me a final score prediction. What do you got?
Like you said, I kind of think this one is hopefully going to be an exciting game. I think hopefully we see some points and some fun offenses going back and forth. I do think the Bills are the better team. Like you said, they've won in a variety of different ways this year. Josh Allen is playing at an incredible level, and I think this is how good team. This is what good teams do. They find ways to win, and the Bills are doing that, while the Rams have found ways to lose more times than not this season. So I do think the Rams keep it close, but I have the Bills kind of pulling away late. I'll take the Bills 34-24.
34-24 you got?
Yeah. Yep.
Well, we did not compare notes here before the show. I want to point that out to everybody. A lot of the things I just said, I think the Rams are a good football team. I think they're at least slightly better than what their 6-6 record indicates, from talking to you, from just reading up on the team, from following them, at least from afar. Like I said, this is an offense that it hasn't put it together consistently yet this year, but is certainly capable of it with some good veteran players here. And this is an exciting young defense that's really stout up front, and then it's got some holes in the back and some question marks beyond that. I am worried about the Bills going on the road, coming down from a high. I mean, they beat the Chiefs, they beat the 49ers in prime time, and they got Detroit coming up next Sunday. This has the makings of a trap game. Let's just put it that way. If you believe in that stuff, this has the makings of a trap game. That said, I just feel like the Bills are really locked in right now, and they'll find a way to win. So you had it 34-24. I have it ever so slightly closer. I had it 34-26. Okay. Got the Rams scoring 26. So 34-26. You got it by 10. I got it by 8. But one thing I'll agree on, or we could both agree on, it should be an interesting and fun game to watch. Let me ask you one question before I let you go, because I love getting an outside perspective. I feel like, we have Josh Allen here in Buffalo. We get to see him up close every week. The good, the bad, the ugly, mostly obviously good. It's not a Bills fan here talking. If you go on any site or betting site, he is right now the betting favorite to win MVP. That's not an opinion. He's the betting favorite right now. From an outside perspective, somebody who's not a Bills fan who covers another team, what's your opinion on Josh Allen? Is he as fun to watch just as a football guy as it appears he is in Buffalo, but from an outsider perspective?
Yeah, outside of Matthew Stafford, Josh Allen is probably my favorite quarterback to watch play. He's outside of Patrick Mahomes. He's that guy that can make any throw and take a nothing play and make it just incredible. I think if you go back to that Chiefs game and the play that he made on 4th down, and he's, I think, the only quarterback that can make that play and score a touchdown in that situation. I think he's really stepped up to the plate this year. Coming in, I kind of expected him and the Bills to start off slow. losing Stephon Diggs was, I think, I thought was going to be a big loss, and Josh Allen has really stepped up to the plate. They've had injuries at wide receiver. Khalil Shakir has played really well, but they drafted Keon Coleman there in the first round, and he's been hurt. Allen has made it work with Amari Cooper, so I've been really impressed with his play. Even kind of going through some of the adversarial things that he's had to go through this year.
Yeah, for sure, man. Appreciate you very much. Blaine, Grisak, everybody, make sure you go to Turf Show Times. I love that name, by the way. It's a pretty dope name, but all your Rams coverage. And I'm looking forward. I've always loved to read. When the Bills play a game, I always like to go to the other side too and kind of read, game recaps and opinion pieces from the outsider perspective, I guess we'll call it. But good job, man. I know you do really good work with Turf Times. Appreciate you having you on the show. Thank you very much, dude.
Thanks, Patrick. Thanks for having me on.
All right, guys, and that's going to do it for this episode. We will be back live 10 p.m. I think we're doing 10 p.m. live following the Bills-Rams game on Sunday night. Joe from Queens will join me. We'll talk about it. We'll recap it, the good, the bad, the ugly. Obviously, hopefully from a Buffalo perspective, a victory. But either way, we'll be back live Sunday night. Enjoy your weekend, guys.